It's great to be here with you. As was mentioned, I'm Michael Monticino. I'm chair of the Advanced Data Analytics program here at UNT. So, as I'm listening to the talks and all the reading I've been doing in the last several months, I think you're probably feeling a little bit like me, like Michelle Wow, and everything, everywhere, all at once, because AI is changing so quickly right now. I think our pace of change has never been like this. Most of what we'll talk about today may be eclipsed by the weekend advances. So for the students of yours, you can't stop thinking about this. But as Courtney mentioned, with this rapid pace of change, it's worthwhile to take back or step back and reflect on where we are and where we might be going and how you keep yourself valuable. We've been at these inflection points before. So I'm starting in 1781. So for those of you who don't know much of American history, so in 1781, the apocryphal story is that the British Army band played the tune, "The World Turned Upside Down," as Cornwallis surrendered to General Washington, which effectively ended the American Revolution. And there was truly this feeling that the world had shifted. There was a difference in ordering. The world has turned upside down. You had a ragtag group of rebellious people who defeated probably the preeminent military and economic power in the world at the time. But that took 6 long years to happen. Not so long ago, in fact, you might imagine by the color of my hair, I actually was in on this very end part here. It used to be that a computer was a room full of people, generally women, sitting doing calculations. That started changing in the 60s and the 70s with the large banks of IBM mainframes. And we really started thinking about, boy, the world is turned upside down. We're going to see these rapid changes. If you looked in popular movies at the time, the robots were taking over the world. We had 2001 Space Odyssey with HAL. We really had this feeling like our world's changing. Jobs are going to go away. They're going to be replaced by computers. But look where we are now. We haven't replaced all our jobs. But there's something different right now. The rapid pace of change in AI, and particularly in the last couple of years, and we expect to see it more, really means we have to think about what's going on. So we're at this pretty unique inflection point. And some of us, if we're thinking about it, are probably feeling a little bit of future shock. Now, way back in Aristotle, and the color changed, so I'm going to have to read part of this for you, is that the way that human beings were different than animals was through our rationality, our ability, our use of language and reason, and importantly, our ability to intuit for one another what shared goals were and try to make that happen. Well, if you think about a lot of that statement of what we used to think made us uniquely human, different than animals, is being replicated by AI now. So, and you heard a lot of it today. So what do we've changed? We say, well, what really separates humans from, say, AI is our emotionality, our emotional intelligence, our situational awareness, our empathy. So Courtney talked about empathy, which is really kind of turning it all over. It's not that the difference between animals and humans are our rationality, is that the unique thing about humans now is our emotional intelligence. And that's quite a big change. But before you all have an existential crisis, and some nights I wake up and think about this, is there are some things we can do and you as students can do to prepare for the new world, because the new world is upon us. You know, here, so here, the good news is that there is high demand for data scientists and data analysts right now. The jobs are plentiful and there's lots of opportunity. But it's not going to be so much about code anymore. Yes, you're going to have to know how to code and read code produced by ChatGPT and its successors, but you're not going to be writing a lot of code anymore. So how do you separate yourself? First thing you really need to think about is if a job can be done remotely, it will probably be replaced by an AI. What's going to separate us out is our humanness. You're going to need to start developing those communication skills, the ability to communicate and advocate and convince by using that situational awareness to know who's in the room, by using that emotional intelligence to be able to read the audience and modulate the tone of your voice to the group you're in. So that's going to be a critical piece because it's what's going to separate you from that AI. You're going to have to gain facility in using AI tools to be able to look at them and say, no, that's not quite what was needed. That code needs to be modified, and gain that deep domain experience really quickly. So one of our speakers talked about, domain experience is often picked up on the job, but that to be able to pick it up and to be able to pick it up quickly is going to take intellectual curiosity, intense intellectual curiosity. And it's going to mean going out and talking to people. I'd like to comment about property management and apartments and calling the plumber and everything's taken care of remotely. I own apartment buildings. That doesn't happen. That plumber may not show up. He may be late. They might not do the job well. There's going to have to be that human interaction there. And so what you're going to need to separate yourself is what makes you human and how does that separate from the AI. Now, as educators, so my fellow faculty members, we're going to have to fundamentally change the way we teach. A lot of what we ask of our students is code this specific thing, look at this specific project, implement this machine learning technique. That's important, but it's not what's going to allow our students to get good jobs and keep those jobs. I hear a lot of faculty say, well, of course, we're going to have to teach critical thinking. Yeah, so tell me what critical thinking really means, and then how do you assess it? We're not very good at doing that. We throw out broad terms. I think part of what it means is raising expectations for students. Is not just asking you questions like implement this machine learning technique and tell me what comes out of it. It's really raising the expectations for your performance, and in particular, requiring you to develop substantive insights from data. And we don't generally ask you to do that. We ask you to do very straightforward, regimented things. So we don't say, hey, here's a data set that we just got from Toyota. Tell me how you would develop a model to predict what the auction prices should be for cars using the data over the last 6 years, where that last 6 years probably contains some data from the pandemic. And how do you handle that? And how do you draw that out? And how do you look at the different dealerships and be able to deal with that? And it might differ from model to model. And why should a Corollas be priced differently than a Highlander? That takes some real domain knowledge and may actually mean talking to people, talking to dealers and asking what happened and to be able to know which part of that data set you should use. That's the sort of thing we're going to have to be demanding out of you to make you valuable in the future. And quite frankly, we're going to have to rapidly evolve our courses and again, our expectations on students. So it's a pretty brave new world out there. But it's exciting. So I encourage you all to hold on and have some fun, because this job is probably one of the best areas